Welcome to Off the Bat Podcast with your host, Jonah Beckenstein, where you can learn about baseball in its top-notch podcast.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Off the Bat. Today, Jonathan couldn't make it, so I'm going to be hosting the episode myself. Before we get started with episode 9, Behind the Bullpen, I'd like to thank you all for your positive feedback, and I urge you to give reviews on Apple, Spotify, Google, and any platform you listen from. This podcast is sponsored by Podpage. Do you have someone you know that has a podcast and have always wanted a website? Well, Podpage is a web hosting platform that automatically sets itself up through most podcasting platforms such as Anchor. Go to offthebat.ca/podpage to see if Podpage is right for you. We use Podpage and we released our website a few days ago. To check us out, go to any web browser and enter offthebat.ca and you should see our website. Oh my God, these ads are killing me. On to the episode. So first things first, welcome. I'm not really going to go into full detail because I want to let you introduce yourself. But after that, we can move into the episode. So I guess, what's your background?
Thanks, Jonah. Thanks for having me on, man. Yeah, I am the bullpen catcher for the Yankees currently, a bullpen catcher along with my boss, Radley Haddad. And I went to Pepperdine University, graduated in 2017, played baseball my whole life, and now I work in it, so I couldn't be happier, and I'm excited to chat with you today.
So I'm assuming that because your stats from Pepperdine University were pretty recent, so is this like your first job out of university?
So I had a funny transition out of playing ball in college. I finished in 2017, and then at that time I'd hurt my arm. Ended up getting Tommy John surgery a few months later. But once I finished playing, so I started working in finance for a few months, and then decided that I still had the itch to play baseball. So I went and got surgery and tried to play initially. Made it all the way around to about a year from that point and just wasn't quite ready physically. My arm was still kind of lagging from where it should have been. So at that point, I decided, all right, well, if I can't make it back to playing, I'd like to work in baseball. And so reached out to some of the scouts that I'd been talking to as a player and was fortunate enough to get an internship opportunity with Seattle. So I interned with Seattle last year. And then towards the end of the internship, I caught wind of this opportunity, and I'm so fortunate to be here and so excited about it, and that's how everything came together.
Yeah, the spark never really dies in baseball. There's no such thing as a break. You either play baseball or you don't.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you get to that point where it's like, can I keep playing? Yes or no? And it's a tough question to answer, but it ends for everyone at some point, and that was my point. So things have worked out pretty well since, so I'm not too upset about it.
And so, as the bullpen catcher, I assume you travel with the team too, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I do travel with the team.
And so how does, team travel work?
So we had one trip in spring training. Like we were talking about before, this is my first year with the team. We had one trip in spring training where we went to play the Nationals and the Marlins, which was about 3.5-hour bus trip from Tampa. Stayed overnight in a hotel over there. So it's pretty similar to, at least that trip was similar to what we did in college. Everybody kind of packed up their stuff, threw it under the bus, and then rode the bus over, had a couple games, stayed overnight in a hotel, and then drove back the day after that. So I assume it'll be a little different during the season with more airline travel than we had in college. Of course, this year is going to be kind of throw everyone for a loop because of the COVID situation. So not sure how that's going to look, but yeah.
Yeah, and if I were to drive on the highway next to the team bus, would I know I'm driving next to the Yankees?
Probably not. It's funny. I was thinking about that the other day because we take a bus. We took a bus from Yankee Stadium to Citi Field to play the Mets yesterday, and you wouldn't know, like, if you were just, I'm sure I've driven alongside a bus before that had some professional athletes in it, and I had no idea because it wasn't marked or anything like that, so it's just kind of a charter bus.
Okay, and I guess I know it's your first year, but I'm assuming when spring training 1.0 was on, I'm assuming the players were allowed to go out of the hotels that they were staying at, like do stuff, right?
Mhm. Yeah, of course, yeah.
So how does that exactly work? Is there a specific timeline where you have to be back at the hotel, or is there a specific like scheduling where you have free time, or is it as long as you make it back to the field, not tired, not and ready for the game or the
Yeah, I
training?
think yeah, that's a good question. I think like everyone pretty much knows that they need to be ready to play. The players are great about that. So there's no real strict timeline. There's no curfews or anything like that. Guys are on their own to do as they will. But from what I noticed, most of the guys are pretty diligent about making good choices, making good decisions in order to get back to the field and be ready and healthy each morning, because there are some pretty early mornings in spring training and not a lot of off days. So the guys are aware that they make sure they get their sleep, stay hydrated, focus on nutrition and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a normal kind of schedule, the same way as if you're at home, except busier with baseball, and the guys, their choices reflect that.
Okay, well, I've already learned more from this first. Wow, 17 minutes. We're really going. Uh, so I know the bullpen has usually in most bullpens there's space for two pitchers to warm up, and the Yankees do have one of the top bullpens in baseball.
Yeah,
Well, it's opinionated, but my opinion is that
I would agree.
my opinion is that the Yankees, even though there's a rivalry between the Jays and the
hmm
Yankees, I can say uh, that I do believe the Yankees have the best bullpen with some great names such as Aroldis Chapman and many more. The reason why I'm singling him out is because not all pitchers can throw 100 miles per hour.
Correct. It's pretty
So,
impressive.
uh, as the bullpen catcher, because you're saying it's your first year, would you be catching Aroldis Chapman, or would the other bullpen catcher with the experience be doing that?
I'd say during the season it'll probably be him. During spring training, I caught a couple times for Chapman a bullpen, just kind of not during a game, and then one time during a pregame bullpen. That was pretty cool. He definitely throws hard, and but he's more accurate. Like than people give him credit for. I mean, he hits your spot. If you put your glove there, he'll hit it. These guys are big league pitchers, so even if they throw hard, most of them know what they're doing as far as location. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. And like you said, the bullpen. I mean, it's crazy. We just have like 5 or 6 guys who'd be closers on almost any other team in the league. So it's a lot of fun to be down there with those guys.
Yeah, and so obviously in the bullpen, when pitchers are warming up, they don't throw as hard, and especially during spring training, they're trying to prevent injuries because the regular season is the important season. So obviously, you were catching a less strength version of Aroldis Chapman, but from what you got, it sounds like you've seen quite a lot, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And like I said, Chapman he's special out there. He throws it really hard and he hits his spots, and it's a lot of fun to be behind the plate for him.
Yeah, and so clearly pitchers throw less hard in the bullpen, so they don't hurt themselves. So I know you haven't had much experience, but how hard would you say is, I guess, the average fastball in the bullpen?
Um, it's funny. So like on an off day when they're just throwing a bullpen to get their work in, they're definitely toning down a few miles an hour. So it depends on the guy. I'd say you'd subtract 4 to 5 miles an hour for most guys. However, on a day when they are going to pitch, so when they're getting hot right before they go in the game, they're usually going to get it up to close to game speed by the end of that pen. So you're looking at a few warm-up pitches where they're just trying to locate the ball, and then as the pen goes, they're going to ramp up the energy, and by the end of it, they're pretty much going full speed. So you're not seeing much of a difference from what they're actually going to take out to the game, other than, of course, when you're in the game, you're on the diamond, between the lines. Usually there's fans in the stands. You get that adrenaline boost, and guys can add a couple more miles an hour there. But they're going max effort in the bullpen, I'd say, like before they go out to the game.
So catcher's gear can only be so protective because it has to be small and I guess compact so that you can I guess move in it. So if you get hit by a pitch, that definitely leaves a mark. So are you scared that there's a chance I guess that you'll miss and get hit?
Not really. I mean, I've been catching my whole life, so I'm used to the bumps and bruises that come with getting squared up pretty good by a ball. But it's part of the job, and the gear covers enough of the important places to keep you safe. So I'm not overly scared by it. It stings a little bit, sure, but it's not something I'm too concerned about.
Forgot to plug in my mic. That was
Oh yeah, no worries.
yeah. So you did play for 4 years for your school baseball team, the Pepperdine Waves, as a hitter. So what position did you play?
I was a catcher in college. Yeah. Yeah, so I caught for 3 years, and then my senior year during the fall is when I injured my elbow, so I just was a designated hitter my senior year.
Okay, so on their website, the Pepperdine Waves, a lot of the players have their own profile with bios. So let's say we were to update your bio.
Wow, I haven't looked at that thing forever.
So is your favorite baseball player still Derek Jeter?
I would say, yeah. I mean, I haven't. Yeah, I would say so. I mean, he definitely was when I made that bio. I guess I know that once he retired, I also was a huge fan of Buster Posey being a catcher, and I was a huge fan of the way he caught and the way he carried himself. So he'd be another one, but hard not to love Jeter. So I wouldn't go away from that.
Okay, and there are still seven more things we need to update. So because you work for the
All right.
Yankees, I'm assuming they're still your favorite team.
Yes, Yankees are still my favorite team.
And so I don't know this book, The Keeper.
Yeah. So that one probably wouldn't be there anymore. That was an interesting book I read a long time ago. That might have been like years before I even put it on that list, but it's a sports book. It's about a goalkeeper in soccer. Kind of a strange sounding story, but it was really cool. The goalkeeper was in a forest one day, and some kind of like shadow of a man almost started helping him become a better goalkeeper, and he ends up getting really good, becoming world renowned. The whole book is an interview, and the keeper later finds out that that man, amongst all his other teammates, were part of a plane crash of a soccer team that crashed in the forest. And so it was, sort of like the spirit of him helping him be a goalkeeper. I think now, like as far as books, it would definitely be a Harry Potter book. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. Probably the sixth or the seventh one would be my favorite book now.
Okay, what about The Office? You still like it?
Yeah, I still like The Office, but TV show is going to go to Game of Thrones, no doubt. I mean,
Yeah, there are a lot of great TV shows out right now.
Yeah, there are. There wasn't much of a picking back then, and still The Office is up there for me, but Game of Thrones has passed it for sure.
So I'm assuming you read a lot of sports because your favorite movie back then was called 61 Star?
Yeah, that's a sports movie about so it was Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle chasing down the home run chase, which had been hit, by Babe Ruth. He had 60 home runs in one season, and those guys were chasing that number. They were both on the cusp of it. Mantle ended up getting hurt. Maris broke it, but he broke it after I forget how many games there were when Babe Ruth played. It was like 144 or something. So that's why there's an asterisk, because it's not quite the same. As far as movies, that one would also be updated. I never can decide on my favorite movies, but it's one of 5. I mean, it could be The Godfather Part 2. I watched the whole Godfather series when I was rehabbing my arm. I loved them. Could be The Dark Knight, Good Will Hunting. Those are just a few that come off the top of my head. So.
And so now I'm not going to tell you what you wrote. I'm just going to ask you now, who is your favorite musical artist at this time?
Oh, man. I don't even remember what I put back then.
I'll tell you after.
Let's see. It's funny. My favorite artist, like, it's probably gotten older than what I put at the time, because one of my friends, a couple of my friends in college, Evan Dunn and Chandler Blanchard, they're teammates, some of my best friends from Pepperdine. we went into a huge classic rock phase towards the end of college. So I would say this one's another one that's hard to land on. It's either Led Zeppelin, the Rolling Stones, or it's probably Led Zeppelin. I'd say if I were to take him over anyone, gun to my head, I'd say Led Zeppelin.
And so now, who do you think you picked as your favorite musical artist?
Oh gosh, I have no idea. Like my taste in music was all over the map back then. Maybe, gosh, Eminem. I don't know. Like it was.
You're getting closer. You picked Macklemore.
Oh, I picked Mac. Okay, yeah. I had a big Macklemore phase in the end of high school. I was a big fan of his, so yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, and then there are two left. So is your favorite food still pizza?
Yeah, kind of like generally. I sucker for Italian food. My mom is one of the best Italian chefs on the planet, so that was just kind of a general answer.
All say.
Yeah, I know, except I actually mean it. But yeah, she makes a killer eggplant parm and chicken francese and a few other dishes. But if I had to like go get one thing with my friends, it would be pizza.
Okay, and then I guess this one, what would you say is your other favorite sport, like other than baseball?
Probably hockey.
Yeah, still
Yeah,
that. So
that one.
there's the nice Canadian aspect. We like to look at our guests.
Yeah, of course. I played hockey a little bit growing up, and I was a big Ducks fan in high school. And yeah, I still play when I go home in little pickup games at the local ice arenas. So it's fun.
So we've already hosted a member of the Yankees organizations, Rachel Bakovic. I'd also like to hear your answer to this question. No, so COVID-19, it's not pretty. And nobody's immune from the virus from what we know. Mm-hmm. So what are the measures that the team is taking into account while traveling from city to city to city?
Yeah, it's a really tough time. And, I remember when we got sent home from spring, I was bummed, but I thought, like at the end of the day, this is just baseball, and the health and safety of the country is most important. And that's why, it's really important that MLB and the union came together for a plan that was really health conscious when they got back. And it had to be vetted rigorously by the government and also by, the players and staff and everyone involved. And fortunately, they did that. And so far, it's been, there's some minor inconveniences, but it's been very effective. And there's been very low positive rates. And, the Yankees, among other teams, are doing a great job with constant social distancing, spreading out practice schedules over the day, so there's not too many people there at once. Everyone's wearing masks. Some of the players have been wearing them during games. Everyone's using hand sanitizer constantly. Everyone has their own baseballs, or specifically the pitchers. And then each hitting group during batting practice has their own baseballs. So there's a lot of measures being put into place. And at first, there's a lot of things to remember, but now it's starting to become a new normal. And I think it's honestly not that big of an inconvenience. And the most important thing is that, people stay healthy, stay safe, and that we continue driving numbers down in the country, which hasn't been happening lately, but at least in baseball, things have been going well.
Well, yeah, that sounds pretty great because we do definitely need to see some more baseball. We've been deprived for too long.
Yeah.
Like, especially as a fan, the opening day coming up, we need it to happen. Whether the Blue Jays play in Buffalo or Florida, because they were just rejected to play in Toronto.
That's what I saw. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
So probably going to be – so the podcast is based out of the greater Toronto area, this one. And as a dedicated fan of the Jays, it's nice to know that the teams that play us most often, and it's nice to know their staff too. So with all the new developments and a pretty successful rebuild, do you see the Jays and Yankees competing for a division in a couple of years?
Yeah, definitely. The Jays have a really exciting young crop of players. Just as a fan of baseball, I think anybody should be watching out for them. They, with Vlad Jr., Biggio, and Bo Bichette, and some of these other guys, I mean, they're going to be really competitive this year and in the years to come. And I think that they'll definitely be, competing with the Yankees and the Rays and the Red Sox and tough teams, in the American League. And I think that it's going to be fun to see those guys develop.
Yeah, so I'm actually gonna have to disagree with you because you did say they're gonna have a successful year this year, but seeing the teams that we are playing this year,
Yeah,
seeing
it's
as
tough
they are
schedule.
the Rays, who are a young crop of players who are fully developed, the Yankees, who are just the scary team you don't want to face, the
Mhm.
Braves, Nationals.
Yeah, that's true. That's a lot of competition,
It's
you
not
know.
going to be pretty. I mean, we can steal a few wins from there and from far in Miami and Baltimore, maybe even Boston, but I don't see anything above the Jays being third in the division.
Yeah, well, maybe it's more of a development year for some of the young guys and, pave their way for the next few years to come.
Yeah, let's hope so. So many traveling employees don't really want to be away from their families, like while baseball's going on. Since you're part of the New York Yankee staff in pro baseball, how would starting the season affect you?
It's not too big of an effect. I'm, young and don't have a family or anything like that. So I could definitely see how guys, who have families, who have a wife and kids at home, like it's very tough for them. But for me, it's no big deal. I mean, I'm a FaceTime away from my parents, and we do that pretty often. And I talk to my mom and dad every couple days, and my brother. So it's not too hard for me. But again, I do understand that for some people it is a big sacrifice. So I'm really happy that everybody involved is doing that, and it means a lot to everyone involved in the game.
Okay, so you made it. You made it. We're at the last question.
All right.
So we like to keep the podcast going with some awesome content, especially during crazy times like now.
Mhm.
We're trying as hard as we can to create quality content for our listeners as fast as possible. But in order to do this, we need our guests to nominate some more guests. So who would you nominate as a guest?
Oh man, I think anybody on the Yankees staff, they're definitely great people to talk to. Also, working with the Mariners, there's a few people over there um, who I'm still very close with. Some great people in the player development system. Connor Dawson, Matt Snyder, Trent Blank, just to name a few. So yeah, I think you can't go wrong with those guys.
Okay, well that's about it for the episode Behind the Bullpen. Thank you so much, Aaron, for coming on the podcast. Hope you stay safe, but more importantly, have a great season.
Yeah, thanks, John. I appreciate you having me on.
So thanks to all of our listeners, viewers, and supporters too. We couldn't get to this point without all of your helpful feedback and urge you to rate and review the podcast. Remember to check out offthebat.ca and have a great day.